Call Clayton Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's been great to stand up in front of the House staff for a fabulous scheduled meal break to talk about the Gambling Amendment Bill. And it's not the first time we've spoken about the Gambling Amendment Bill. It is the first time that I've had a chance to talk about the second part, the Gambling Amendment Bill number 2. The last time was actually the Gambling Amendment Bill number 3, and it created quite a stir in the House to the point where before I came in this evening I had to check to make sure we had a defibrillator on hand to make sure that there wasn't going to be anybody passing out through the pressures of this afternoon's conversation. But Mr Chair, I should say, I'd like to start off by going to part 3 of the bill and talking about that specifically, and that's clearly harm minimisation. And when I talk about harm minimisation, and it's a word that gets used readily, I don't think the essence of where we're actually sitting in this country is being put into consideration, because in actual fact we are sitting in a harm minimisation period when it comes to gaming machines, specifically Class 4 gaming machines, the likes of poker machines. And I think if this government was truly trying to represent the people by saying let's do some good about minimising harm to those people that have got problem gamblers, they would be not doing deals with the likes of Sky City Casino that we've heard.
Member will resume your seat. Order. The point of the debate around this bill is very narrow. Members will confine themselves to the narrow nature of the clauses that we're debating. Other members of the House have done exactly the same, and this is not a place for... I'm sorry, I'm on my feet. And so I remind the member that he is to stick to the narrow nature of the clauses of this bill.
Sir?
Point of order, Denise Roche.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just would like to draw to your attention that Part 3 in the bill does actually refer to casinos and talks about age restriction on gambling in casinos, and presumably also about issues relating to problem gambling with casinos as well.
Thank you. I have the gist of the member's point of order. My ruling remains exactly the same. The fact that casinos are mentioned and pokies mentioned are implicit in what this legislation is trying to achieve. Members will remain narrowly focused on the clauses that are under debate.
Mr Chair, I appreciate your response, and I was actually hoping to get through today's conversation without having a point of order and being sat down. I certainly won't make a habit of it. It wasn't intentional. Mr Chair, I do have to go back to harm minimisation though, because it is a big focus of what I'm here to talk about today. And if I look at yesterday's release of the Salvation Army Social Policy and Parliamentary Unit, the State of the Nation report, which came out, in fact, this morning, Mr Chair, was saying that pokie machine numbers sink to a 14-year low. It also goes on to say, sir, that the decline in gaming machines numbers has translated into the decline in losses by gamblers. This, to me, Mr Chair, represents that we are in a positive decline when it comes to harm minimisation for gambling. And I get back to something simple that we learned. If you don't want to fix something that's not broken, don't fix it. It doesn't need to be fixed. We don't need this piece of legislation in here to tighten up on an industry which is currently under siege. And when we talk about harm minimisation, sir, we don't factor into the good that we get out of our communities. The money that gets represented for our government, some near $300 million in taxes, $300 million that go into our local communities. And I'm telling you, when I look around here at the members that are looking up at me, that are members of tennis clubs, sports clubs, cultural clubs, schools, surf life-saving communities, they rely heavily on the money, the good that Class 4 gambling does associate itself with. And when I go back to the casinos and the likes, where they've been given 500 more machines, if that was truly about harm minimisation, Mr Chair, they wouldn't be allowing that to go ahead. It's actually about making money for an organisation that is much larger than the small pubs and clubs and associated groups that actually do have gaming within their societies to actually put back directly into their communities. I think, for example, last year, Mr Chair, Sky City Casino returned $3 million, yes, I'm coming in, $3 million to their local community as opposed to the $300 million that this Class 4 gaming machines throughout the country brings in. You know, over the years we have seen PIDs and pods. We've reduced gaming machine spending from $100 notes and $50 notes down to $20 notes, which has obviously helped control the gambling, the way people are actually spending their money. We've got now timeouts. We've got staff intervention, Mr Chair, where we have given taken away the responsibility of the person that are actually gambling, taking and making that choice to put some money, whether it be for relaxation, whether it be for just enjoyment. We've taken that responsibility away and we've put it in the hands of operators, staff and managers. And this new legislation goes a long way from giving that responsibility to the people that are making that choice to put that money into that machine and making it the responsibility of those owners and their operators. Mr. Chair, I think this legislation, in part, we don't support it. There are parts, however, that we do, and I'll talk about those parts shortly. We need to get back to the part about self-exclusion orders. Now, that's absolutely vital for our people to be able to say to themselves, I've got a problem. I need help. And in order to get that help, I need to stay away from licensed gambling machine areas. Absolutely fantastic piece of legislation. This new piece of legislation is going to allow those people to come onto licensed premises, providing they don't go into those gaming machine areas. What a load of nonsense. Mr. Chair.
Clayton Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We must absolutely uphold their right to stay away from gambling areas and say to them, no, you can't enter that licensed premises. Otherwise, you've got extra costs that will be implied onto those small businesses and those pubs and clubs around the country to have security not only at their front door to make sure that there's no intoxicated persons entering the premises, to make sure there's no underages entering the premises, but also to make sure that those people that have self-excluded themselves don't secretly sneak themselves or lead themselves to temptation to go back into those rooms. Now, the Gambling Society have actually spent and put a lot of money in through gambling levies to actually minimise harm, to take away some of that risk. And yet when I look at some of these figures that are put forward here, the help's not there for them, Mr. Chair. The money that's put in is actually not getting to the people that need it the most. In actual fact, huge amounts of, and here's an article out of the Queenstown Observation. Councillors say a lack of services for problem gamblers and people who need addiction-related help in Queenstown, Lakes and Central Otago is outrageous. They just do not have the on-hand support. In fact, what I'm saying here, Mr. Chair, is that the money that has been cleared and gathered by the gambling levy for harm minimisation has actually been misspent. That money has actually been spent heavily lobbying against the organisation that are actually funding them. When in actual fact they shouldn't be standing up placarding the gaming machines, they should be actually saying the 0.03% of the population that have a gambling problem, and we're talking about gambling problems to do with lotto, keno, we're talking about casinos, we're talking about TAB, we're talking about some of the parts in this country where the betting is going up on a steady incline. We're not talking about gambling with Class 4 machines that are actually on a decline. In actual fact, if they spent that money in the right place, we'd actually find that we'd actually get that number right down instead of spending it on lobbying against the groups that are there to support them, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to stand up and speak now again about part one of the bill. And this is the part that we do support. Now, racing in New Zealand has been a huge part of our society for a very, very long time. Mr. Chair, we cast our minds way back long before we were born to one of our greatest exports this country's ever had, and that's Farlap. Now, this was a young horse, a thoroughbred that was sold off to Australia, created a worldwide storm. In fact, at one point it was the third largest grossing horse in the world. You know, up there against some of the other greats, can't come to mind at the moment. I think Man of War was one of them, etc. By not allowing Class 4 gaming machine proceeds to go into one of our greatest export regions for our country, and let's just talk about that for a second, Mr. Chair. Somewhere here, I've just dropped my piece of paper. We are talking about an export group that has, last year, 2012-2013, 1,500 sales, overseas sales of our thoroughbreds racing horses, totalling some $130 million in export sales for our country. That purely comes from racing. Now, racing is under siege, Mr. Chair. We need to take a positive, proactive approach. We need to be putting funds, like what they've done with the Melbourne Cup, made it the richest race in the Southern Hemisphere. we could actually have that at our fingertips. We could actually have the largest race in New Zealand if we were able to put monies into funding that. Now, that outstrips a conference centre. I mean, this is going to bring in huge amounts of wealth throughout our country. And to cut the hand that's been feeding this country for such a long time is an inappropriate position for the government and this bill to take, Mr Chair. I want to say, just to finish off, one of the positive things that we've seen the gambling Class 4 gaming machines do is I've just got a CD that I believe every single MP got late last year. And just to cast your eyes, this is 13 to 18-year-olds, and this was a competition, a national competition that was funded by Class 4 gaming machines. This is the 2014 Lion Foundation Songwriters Competition. Now, this is talking about 13 to 18-year-old children that are in our schools that are being empowered to stand up and write songs and sing their songs. And I'd like to actually take this time to congratulate Talia Dalton from Otamotai College in Tauranga for getting that award. Because that's very important about the opposition to harm minimisation. This is talking about good that gambling does. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Call Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair, and it's a pleasure to take a call on the Gambling Amendment Bill number 2. And can I